Okay, everyone, welcome back to Sharp Cuts. It's me, Garrett May, with Josh Nickel. We're here to talk about all things volleyball. If you're here for the volleyball, which we are, I mean, you came to the right place. Am I right, Josh?
Definitely right. And Garrett, for the record, I'm not sure I missed you, but I definitely missed us. We took a couple weeks off there. We're back. Hopefully, our loyal audience is re-engaged and ready to go again.
Wait, you didn't miss me? That's incredibly upsetting. Like, what the heck, dude?
I think our power is you and I together. It's not individual. I think it's the sum of the parts.
Okay, well, you like being with me, but you don't like me. I get it. It's fine. It's fine. So we're back. Yeah, we took a couple weeks off. Thanks for joining us and listening along. We do it for you. Now, what are we talking about, Josh? Because, as you all know, I'm incredibly unprepared for really everything I step into. We have no guest today. I don't know who to blame that on, you or me, but, I'll blame it on you just because you didn't say you missed me. But what are we covering today?
I think it's definitely on me. Full disclosure, I messaged somebody around 5 o'clock to ask them to be on the show, and they didn't respond in time. So that's on me. That's just bad booking. But I think where to start, Garrett. I think we built it up. We fired it up. It didn't happen. We didn't get to host a Canada versus Canada match at your dad's new court. We didn't get to host it at Dead Man's Beach in Ottawa, the friend of the show. I think. Did you watch the game? It was heartbreaking. I so much love and support for those guys, but you leave it to a golden set, and man, anything can happen, right?
Okay, well, let's recap it because I think I need a little bit of a recap too. Let's see if I get it right. Canadian men going down to Mexico, NORCECA Continental qualify for a spot in the Olympic frickin' Games. I mean, two Canadian women's teams already in. Men looking to book one spot. Two teams. We make it to the final against Mexico, home turf. I mean, that's an advantage. And we got Sam and Sam taking on Mexico. I forget their names. And they ended up losing the first game. Do I have that right?
Correct. We were up big in the first set, and then Rubio and Gaxiola got going. That Mexican crowd. I think you've played in Mexico before, Garrett. They are passionate, and when they get rolling, it's a special place, and it can be hard for the opposing team. And yeah, Sam and Sam lost two straight after being up in the first set and just couldn't close. And yeah, that was tough to watch.
I mean, that hurts, right? It hurts big time. But so we got Canada, the other Canadian team, Ben and Grant. They go and get a win against the other Mexican team, so we're still alive. I mean, did you watch that match? Because I did not.
That one was business as usual. I think Grant and Ben really took care of it. Virgin Ontiveros are a good team. I think anyone who watched Toronto Pan Am in 2015, they won. That's a good squad. But yeah, I think Ben and Grant were dialed in, ready to go. And just for our listeners to clarify, because Garrett, you'll like this. Continental Cup wasn't the same for everybody. So in NORCECA...
Oh, wait, sorry. I've been telling everybody it's the same in every continent. You're saying I'm completely wrong?
So the thing that is the same is every country enters two teams, but it's different in every continent, where in NORCECA, we had your ones play your ones and your twos play your twos, where in Europe, they did what I think is like a model that makes more sense is Canada 1 would have played Mexico 2, and the crisscross happens there. And then if there's a tie, you go to the golden set, where in NORCECA, they did the ones versus ones. And then the other thing I thought was interesting, where Jake McNeil, friend of the show, and I disagreed on this, in Europe, the CEV, when they go to the overtime, Garrett, they play a match. And you have to win a golden match 2 out of 3, where in NORCECA, I think as a fan, I like the 1 set to 15, let's get gritty, let's get into it. Where in Europe, I think they want to get it right, and it's kind of like the hockey comparison, right? In the regular season, we do 3-on-3 and then a shootout because you want it to be over, where in the Stanley Cup playoffs, we're playing 20-minute overtimes where the right team's going to win. So I don't know where you stand on this as a former player, but in CEV in Europe, they played a full match if they needed the tiebreaker.
Well, listen, they know what they're doing, and we completely don't, and I'm not afraid to say that. I mean, we need to figure it out. I mean, golden set to 15. So, the context, though, so 1-1, right? Then you got to warm up to play a set to 15, right? One team wasn't playing. The other team maybe comes off right from playing. The other team wasn't playing, right? That's the only way it could happen.
Yeah, and to build on your point there, the amount of people who messaged me being like, oh, when's the golden set, thinking they get a day to recover, I was just like, I don't know, 5 or 8 minutes. So you see Ben and Grant sitting in their timeout area cooling down while Rubio's warming up again because he just played a full match, sat a full match, and now he's got to gear up again for the Olympics.
I gotta say, now that it's passed, it's the dumbest thing. Like, are you kidding me? I mean, it's maybe bitter Canadian that, well, I mean, we didn't get the berth. Maybe I'm bitter, but like how now that you bring that up, I didn't think about it. How dumb is that? Ben and Grant are sitting there having just played. This team's full of warming up. Like, hey, we've been sitting for an hour. Like, let's go. Whereas if you're going to play a full match, it kind of evens out over the time. Even a full set. Like, you're coming right out to play one set to 15. It's a short set. Like, now, I am surprised that Ben and Grant, who was the team who just played, kind of went down early, right? Like, they should have been a little bit more ready.
The other way around. They went up big, and I think Ben hit a ball out of bounds, like barely out of bounds. Like I thought he tagged it. The ref called it out. It was definitely out on the replay, but that would have made it 4-0, and it made it 3-1. I think they were maybe up 5-1 or 4-2 at one point. Like they came out early, and then Rubio Gaxiola got rolling. The crowd got behind them, and it turned into a heck of a match. But out of the gates, because Ben and Grant again were fresh, they took advantage on that first side change. I think it was we side changed at 4-1, and by the time we side changed again, it was 5-all.
No, okay, so absolutely that's what happened. Is the team who had just played was ready to go, and the other team was not. But then we blew it. It hurts so much. It's just painful.
And the other layer, again, Garrett, with your experience and volleyball knowledge, I want to pick your brain on this because some people are shrugging this off, and I really feel for these teams. So there's countries where
shrugging what off?
Mexico.
No, what? Who's shrugging it? It's the frickin' Olympics, bud.
No, let's get into this. So your federation wins, so you have two teams now, and you got to pick one. There's federations out there that before you win, you know who's going. Like Australia men declared it. They knew. Australia 2 knows if we win, we're not going to Tokyo. We're a big team. We're supporting these guys. Fine, you know. And Canada and Mexico ended up doing this too. You play a head-to-head, winner goes. I really like that format. You win the game, you go. There's other federations that nominated after. And I think that's so heartbreaking to go. You win a CEV with your buddy. Even the Swiss guys, there was a match, Garrett, where you and your partner and me and my partner are playing. But in the golden set, they put you and I together. They're mixing teams together.
They did that?
So Swiss, yes, and it paid off and they won. But then the Swiss, I think it happened afterwards. You find out and you go, hey, guys, thanks so much for all you've done for a federation. We're going to the Olympics. Garrett, congratulations. You're going to Tokyo.
Like, well, I would pick me as well,
But the pick, I think you should play for it. You should always, we're competitive athletes, you should play for it.
Well, I mean, I think I would fall on that side too. Like, I think there's probably 95, and I said this on a previous episode, there's like 95% of situations where picking the team in that situation is not good. It's just stupid, right? Especially if it's two competitive teams. Like, if they're close in any way, even, you know, forget points. Like, if they're just close, like, you want to send your best team as a federation. If they're not close, though, like, if I'm the federation, at some level, I don't care what's fair. I want to try to show well at the Olympics, right? Like, you can see how someone might feel that way. It's not fair, but they're just trying to do their best, you know?
That's true. And if you leave it up to one match, you're right. You could be sending technically your second country where you know the other team has a better chance at the Olympics, which I see it, but I just feel so heartbroken for these teams that, like, you win and then you kind of go like, well, I'm going to pick you. And then the other drama thing that I thought was hilarious, Jake McNeil was in quarantine, so he's updating me on like every time some drama happened, which was hilarious. Garrett, as a coach, would you have done this? The Dutch women, they have to go to a golden match, but they nominate the team that lost. So this team wins. Your one team wins to force the golden set, but then you go, you know what? We're going back with this team, and they just lost to the same exact team, and then they beat them again in a golden match. Like, you're a confident guy, and you're like,
they won.
Yeah. So they just lost to this team in 3 and came back in the golden match to beat them in 3. And I'm like, as a coach, how do you logically be okay with that being like, even though, Garrett, you just lost to this team, we're going to give you another shot. You're going to get it done this time for us. Even though I'm sitting there being like, I just won my match. Pick me.
Well, hey, I mean, in some ways, if you're a country, was that a country who already knew who was going?
I'm not sure how the Dutch knew. I think they may have known.
Because if that's the case, then it's like, hey, we're picking you anyways. If you win, if somebody wins, it's you. So you go and get the job done. Now it's on you. Like, that's it, right? So I get that. But Well, if it were me sitting there, I'd pick me too. Like, I don't know. What are you talking about? I would pick me, but I don't get that choice. But yeah, I would never do that. Pick it, especially in the 1-versus-2. Like, because if my 2 beats the 1 team, well, they're definitely going to beat the 2 team. Or you got to expect, or you got to hope. But if my 1 loses, I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck am I doing? Like, why did we even put them this way?
I should have wrote it down. I forget the exact matchup, but it was definitely the Dutch women that the Netherlands won, lost, and they sent them again to the same exact opponent, and they got it done. So, I mean, those are the gambles that you pay off. You look all world, but I was just like, logically, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I mean,
like
I know you wouldn't have.
Squad.
I wouldn't have. Absolutely not. I would have been like, get on the plane, like now. Like, I booked you a flight 30 minutes from now. You don't even get to watch this match because you ain't going. You lost. But I'm a bit harsh that way. The one thing we kind of glazed over a little bit, though, which is kind of gutty, kind of gutless, is a federation knows who they're going to pick if they win the berth, but doesn't tell the teams before they go, because it makes the team you're not going to pick think they have a chance, right? Like, think if they show well, maybe they'll get picked, but really the whole time. Whereas some federations told the teams, hey, if we win, we're picking this team. At least that way you can be pissed, but you can say, hey, maybe I'll go and throw the game because it's not me anyways. Like, I could see that happening too. Like, that's a wild situation there.
So I think fans should go read for themselves. It's Marco Kratinger from the Swiss team, and I'll just give the teaser here. He says in the caption, it goes on, like he writes a pretty big blurb here, but yesterday we achieved one of the biggest successes for Switzerland in terms of beach volleyball in the last 8 years. We qualified for the Olympics, or didn't we? And then he goes on to explain how he was a big guy, and he earned a lot of points, and he won a lot of matches, but he's not going to Tokyo. So I just feel for these guys because, Garrett, you've been on tour. You represent Canada, but you don't, because you're playing against other Canadians. You're fighting for carding. You're fighting for sponsors, all this stuff. And then this Continental Cup comes along, and it forces you to be a big team. But then at the end of this experience, you're separated again, and only one of you can go. So it's kind of like, it shows how unique our sport is, that you're always fighting for yourself. And then you kind of have the illusion that we're a national federation. But then again, it's like, I got to get mine first.
Yeah. Did that guy, like, his federation just picked, like the Swiss federation just picked the other team?
Yeah, Gerson Heydrich, they were higher ranked, and when the Olympic window started this year after COVID, like they were in the Olympics. Like they were always flirting to be a top 16 team anyways. Like they're a very good team, but Kratinger, he did it. And he got mixed with Gerson to go win a golden set for his federation. So like they trusted him over Heydrich to get it done in a pure moment.
That's a complete dumbass move in my opinion. I can't believe they still won. To switch up partners, what are you thinking? I'm glad it didn't blow up in their face, but also I'm kind of pissed it didn't blow up their face. They go, one team wins, one team loses. Well, actually, we're just gonna flip the partners. Like, what? What are you talking about? And then we're gonna pick one of you and not, like, that's so incredibly stupid in my opinion. Like, so hey, if you're a Swiss Federation fan out there, I mean, apologies, but not really. Like, tell your federation to give its head a shake. Not that ours is any better, Josh. No, oh sorry, that a subtle shot at you. Yeah, man, it's just so tense situations there. Like, the gist of Marco's message, and I definitely encourage people to go read it, is he just talked about, like, he feels like with the effort and how he delivered, like he totally deserves to be an Olympian, but he doesn't get that opportunity. So it's kind of like a flaw with the qualification process and with his federation, that like he won important matches for his team and he doesn't get to go because of the choose him, right? So it's I think it's a fair argument, where when I told other athletes, like some of our athletes in the program, I was like, man, I really feel for Kratinger, and they go, no, he knew what he was signing up for. Like, they had no sympathy for him, where I was kind of like, I'm completely gutted for this guy, where some other guys are just like, no, you know what you're signing up for. Yeah, no,
like,
whoever said that can go suck a lemon. Like, figure your stuff out, whoever's saying, oh yeah, he knew what he signed up for. He went and earned that. Did they know beforehand who was going?
I have a feeling they didn't, based on this heartfelt like thing that he posted. I have a feeling they didn't, but they for sure did not play for it. They did a straight nomination.
Yeah, like that's absolutely gutless by the federation, and I'm not afraid to say it. Like, I know you maybe got to hold your tongue, but I like you split the teams up, Josh, to put one guy with another guy, and you're not going to have them play it out to see who goes. They both earned it. Like, you can't argue that. You could argue, a team who wins their game, the other team loses, and then they go and win the golden set. Hey, we earned it. They didn't. You could argue that. In this case, there's no argument. Like, he was a participant in earning that frickin' berth. Like, if you were going to do that, don't mix up the teams. Do what that other federation did. Say, hey, you're going? Go earn it.
For sure, because I think that this magnifies that if federations don't have depth, because there were a few federations, again, looking at the CEV, because there's so many good teams there. Latvia, because Plaventoks are already in the Olympics, Smedins and Smolovs would win, and they'd have to win their tight game. Latvia 3 at this time is not that strong. They for sure were losing. And then Smolovs and Smedins for Latvia to advance always had to win a gold match, win a gold match, win a gold match. And the Polish women did this. The Belgium guys are really good, but Belgium 2 is not that good. So I kind of feel for some federations that don't have depth that, like, Garrett, you're going to a tournament, you're trying to get a spot for the Olympics, and you're going to have to win 2 matches today every single time to advance, right? Like, that's really tough.
Yeah, and I guess it kind of brings up the point of, like, what's the FIVB trying to doing with those continental berths, right? Like, why are they doing that? I mean, I think it's a tool to grow the game, but I think probably the flaw, what you see is you end up seeing these teams who are in the hunt anyways. All these teams were in the hunt, right? Going and earning the berths. So it's not like we're getting, new teams. I mean, you're giving new teams a chance for sure. Like, you have a shot at the Olympics. You can say, hey, we gave every country a shot at a berth, right? Because you did. I mean, there's a qualifier for those continental qualifiers.
I think with the exception of Africa, I think every continental zone, because like we would have had American teams in from Norseca, South America got like Chile and Brazil, and on the men's side, obviously Brazil and probably another federation on the women's side. Europe's obviously populated, and then like with Australia and with Asia, there's always going to be a Chinese team or Australia or Japan's hosting. So if we can figure out a way to make Africa competitive, but you're right, like I feel for the Latvians because they missed out on a front door entry by 20 points, and then they got to go to their CEV, and they got to make sure you take care of business, watch your other team lose, and then load up for that golden match every single time.
Yeah, so like I'm okay with that federation saying, if you win, you're going. Like,
for sure.
I'm okay with that, right? Because this team's trash. Like, you got to go win a golden set. Maybe they're not even eligible to go to the Olympics. Didn't play enough tournaments or whatever. Like, that's totally possible too, right? In that case. But, oh, man, like, it kind of doesn't make sense in some ways, like, why you would put 2 teams earn the berth. Like, it's kind of arbitrary. One team is that team goes and wins and earns the berth for themselves. 2 teams, like, well, why not 3? Why not put 4 teams and go, like, full Davis Cup style? Let's play everybody in Canada. Let's play the entire national team against all national teams. Like, what's the... I mean, where are you going to end it?
NCAA does 5 in their dual system. Like, that would force a federation like us to really get deep, because now we got to win like 3 out of 5 matches. Like, that's... Oh, can you imagine Canada 5 winning the golden
who'd be coming
set?
back?
How fired
this
up we'd
guy.
be.
Oh, yeah. You'd be like, Garrett, hey, we need a 5th team. We're shorthanded. Can you put one together? I'd be like, absolutely, but only if you guarantee me the berth.
Can you get it done? We need you to beat Guatemala 5 for us, Garrett. Can you get it done?
No, I'm in tough, man. That's absolutely too much to ask for. I mean, Guatemala 5, they might be as washed up as I am, which is pretty washed up.
And just while I'm on my high horse here, I will make one comment.
Are you on your high horse? I mean,
if this was COVID related, or Garrett, you've actually been to Norseca, because I only ever been to a Norseca when it was in North Bay, and that was first class. I've never actually had to travel to one or go to one, but not to like a Central American Norseca. But what I was going to say is the draw was set up that it could have held 12 teams, but the only 6 showed up. And I was talking to some of the players. There was a pretty heavy entry fee. And then obviously some federations like pick one out of a hat. Like I think Belize is beautiful, and I'm going to go back there in a second, but their men's team was not going to win an Olympic berth. So they didn't even bother going. So I thought it was an interesting observation that an Olympic qualifier for beach volleyball, it could have housed 12 teams, only 6 participated in. And then one team from Nicaragua ended up getting COVID. So we only played 1 match straight up against them. And when Sam and Sam won, that was the duel. So it was just like really weird to see a continental championship not taken as seriously by some other federations. It was just kind of disheartening to see where the state of our sport is in some other countries.
Well, part of that, though, too, Josh, would be that maybe those federations don't even have any teams who are Olympic eligible.
That's possible, yeah, for sure. That's
like
a good point.
If I don't have a team who played, what do you need, 12 FIVBs or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like there's some countries who didn't have any teams play any FIVBs, right? or they send a variety of teams to the NORCECA tournaments, so they only get maybe 4 or 5 in a season, right? There's not enough tournaments. So that's maybe why. But if there was a federation who was eligible and didn't go, it'd be like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, just go. Like, you might as well. Maybe everybody gets COVID and you get in.
Or maybe you send some young guys, and this is a 17-year-old's highlight, and maybe in the next cycle they're really good because they have this experience, right? Where I think you're right. Now that you've used some logic and punched me in the mind there, like Cuba on the men, like that was a standout to me, being like they're always competitive. Why are they not here? And as I think about it, for sure their second team would not have been eligible, and their first team, I think with 2020 being canceled, they probably lost a chance to play a lot of events.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that's kind of disappointing. But, I mean, that's probably the struggle of us being in NORCECA conference, right? Like, Europe would probably not have that problem because they have all their countries they have a lot more continental events. They got FIVBs in their back door. A lot of countries host, so that's an easy tournament. So, I mean, and plus for us, like, say we host a NORCECA, like, you got to go frickin' far if you live in, I don't know, if you live in Guatemala to make it to Vancouver, say you host it. That's a journey. Like, where in Europe you could take a train. Like that is a bit of a disadvantage as well. Now, not as much as the oceanic division. Like, if you're in Japan, you got to fly all the way down to Sydney. That ain't an easy trip either. And they probably do that regularly.
Sure. Well, every time I go on the CEV website as a coach in a national federation, I get frustrated because CEV does everything so well where they have national tours that they can let other federations play on. They have an 18U, a 20, and a 22 championship. So, like, young kids are getting, like, big experience over and over again. Like, they host the most amount of events. So seeing what NORCECA does and seeing what CEV does, it's just kind of like I could see in the long run why our federation plays less matches, has less meaningful competition, just because our continental host just doesn't do as much as the CEV does.
Well, Josh, I'm going to plant the bug then. I'm gonna throw it back on you, buddy. Hey, why doesn't somebody in Canada step up and say, we'll host the event? Because it really is that's all it would take, right? You just organize it and you host the event. I guess you would need it sanctioned, and maybe they don't want to sanction.
Personal debt. I will go into personal debt to host a NORCECA 18U championship. And like, yeah, I think really it does take the heart of a promoter to say it. And when speaking to Leonard, obviously who's a part of our program now, but was a part of Germany, he mentioned because CEV is so organized, it challenges national federations to then invest in the program, right? Because now if there's a 20U world championship, or excuse me, continental championship, you want to do well at that. So now you got to have a youth program and you got to coach these kids up, and then they get a taste for it at 20U. Now they want to go to 21U Worlds. Now they want to go on the World Tour. So it just creates this ripple effect where, now that I think about it, Gary, like, there's no free ads on the show, but I'm wearing my 8x8 t-shirt that Johnny Pickett hooked me up with. Comfortable shirt. Awesome. Definitely recommend it. Maybe 8x8 wants to sponsor NORCECA and we can get this going. Maybe a 1-star, maybe a 2-star, Garrett. Maybe we just have this whole Canadian circuit and we just, because let's be honest, Garrett, if we sandbag this and we just host them at all the indoor facilities in Canada, who's going to come to Toronto in December and play a 1-star? The whole draw would be Canadian teams, and we get all those points and all that money.
That'd be such an easy win, dude. Like, are you kidding me? Let's host it at the center, indoors in winter. Like, I mean, people will come. Are you allowed to host an event indoors?
The Hag did it. So I don't know what the actual rules, because remember,
Let's
right after New Year's,
Let's go, Josh.
So we host one in Toronto, and then we go to Winnipeg, and we host one there, and then we go to Calgary, and we host one there, and then we finish it off in Vancouver. We have a whole circuit.
We had the Saxtons on the show. I'm sure they'll be ready to host. Let's go. I mean, are you kidding me? Let's do it, Josh. Indoor circuit. We're taking all the points. I'll be in those tournaments. I'll take an easy 9th. Like, give me those, I don't know, whatever it is, 100 points.
I've been to Winnipeg twice, and it's beautiful, but I've been there in the summer. I would like to see what, like, Winnipeg in January looks like. Like, if you're from another country flying to Canada, like, are you going to do that for a 1-star? Like, it's gutsy to do that, I think. It
is bold, and it can get down to minus 40 degrees Celsius. So if you run in Fahrenheit, I don't even know what that is, minus 500 probably. But it's freaking cold. But I would love to see it, because whenever we would go to tournaments and it would get, like, kind of cold, you'd see entire Team Brazil with full parkas, like a full parka, and we'd be like in, like, not quite our shorts and t-shirt, but we'd be like in and be like, oh, we're Canadian, eh? Like, we can handle the cold, eh, bud?
Let's be honest, Grant O'Gorman was shirtless for sure.
Yeah, he would have still been shirtless if it was like minus 12. Forget 12 degrees, even minus 12. Still flexing out there. He'd be like, it's golf weather, bud. And I'd be like, I mean, yeah, it is. It absolutely is.
Love that guy. But anyways, Garrett, that's my quick review of CEV. That's such a rush to see other federations that I root for doing well, but then the heartbreak of seeing some other people not do well, seeing our guys not do well. It was a big grasp of emotions, and I really feel for our guys that Canada's not going to have a men's team at the Olympics this cycle. It hurts with. I mean, you played with Sam Schachter, Grant O'Gorman very well. Those guys worked their tails off. Ben and Sam Pedlo, like all four guys are deserving of it. It didn't happen for us, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a tense situation. Like you got to win a short game. Like you got to do it. And I mean we've done it before, so I don't feel super bad. Like we've done it before. Like Sam and Sam both, and Grant, they all went and did that thing before. So they knew what they were getting into, right? But I do feel for them in that like you never want to see anyone like fold up. You never really want to see anybody kind of give it up. What we all hope for as spectators, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but what we all hope for as spectators is to watch a great battle and see a champion emerge, right? And I didn't watch the games, so I don't necessarily know. But it would be a lot easier pill to swallow if like we look back and go, yeah, I mean that Mexican team that's going, they're champion, man, and they're gonna make a big impact when they hit the Olympics type thing. So if that wasn't the case, and I mean only these guys know, only the guys if you watch you maybe know. I mean it just hurts, right? Like I think one of the sets for Sam and Sam was 21-13, which like that's what I feel bad for is like, we were in it, we had a chance, but then that is it. You don't get another shot. It's over, which is just like tear-inducing in some ways, and I'm getting a little emotional. So we maybe should. Who was not saying that? Who's saying, "Oh no, it's whatever"? Like, please tell them you're off the team.
Yeah, I thought it was just a heartless comment. And as I'm listening to you explain that, actually, Ben Saxton did go through this. Like him and Christian were a big part of winning the bid with Martin and Josh, and then they lose the heartbreaker at home, right? So all four guys know that experience of going through the Continental route, and I think, it's not easy. It's not easy on the heart, that's for sure.
You know who we do have going to the Olympics, though?
Hey!
We got a few teams going to the Olympics. I mean, we got the Canadian men indoors, which is exciting, and we got the Canadian women on the beach. I mean, we've talked a lot. We even talked to a few of the future, previous Olympians, but future Olympians as well on this show. Actually, we've had 2021 Tokyo Olympians who now on the show. Josh, we successfully did that. TJ Sanders gets named to the team. Show. Melissa, well, we knew she was going when we had her on the show. Brandy is going to the Olympics. Who else did we have? Anyone?
I think that's it for now. And I will add that women's sitting will be going to the Paralympics. So like Canada's moving in the right direction. I think we've had a bunch on Passin Dimes podcast. You can go through the archives. That like Sarah was a great episode. Heather was awesome. We've had some sitting players. So I think like it's a good community to be a part of. That it's exciting. And yeah, I think the pools are out, and I think there's some drama there, Garrett. I think it's going to be fun. I think Melissa and Sarah are the 1 seed, but man, like the way they drew the pools, I think they weighed the Continental winners all the same. So we get the CEV one of the Dutch team who's actually got a win over Melissa and Sarah this year. So it's not going to be an easy path. And I'm excited to support our teams and see what they can do because we're a medal threat.
Yeah, we're a medal threat, man. Explain to me and the viewers, because maybe some of us don't know. So in F5EB tournaments, a lot of third place teams make it out of pool, right? I think maybe they change it to every third place team, or do a few miss?
No, so I really like this. I don't think it was as popular in your era, but because you were kind of like a double elim guy in a lot of the tournaments. But what
Never
it's called is
double
modified
elim tournament.
Were you in full pool play where like you're in pool 4 and you play everybody?
Yeah.
Well, that gets dragged out and some matches don't matter and there's tiebreakers. So the format they've been using the last few years is what's called modified pool play. And I really like this because technically every game you win advances you further in the tournament. So you start off in your pool of 4, 1 plays 4, 2 plays 3, and then winners play winners, and the winner of that match gets a bye to pre-quarters. So again, that win advances you further in the tournament. Because the two team technically won one game already, they get out of pool, and they're going to play a 3. So you got to win one game to get out of pool. So a 2 plays a 3 in the round of 24.
Okay.
If you finish 4th in your pool, sorry, you're gone. Like you played 2 and you're out. And then we're into the playoff bracket where a 2 plays 3, and then they're playing a pool winner who's already waiting. And then you're into pre-quarters, quarters, semis, finals, and away we go. But the modified pool system makes every game meaningful. And like I said, winning matters. Even though you win that first one and you feel like you're safe, like we're going to get out of this. Well, no, you want to win again, so you get a bye to the next round.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that's a much better system because when I played, it was point ratio for that third place team, and 2 teams got ousted based on point ratio, which was just awful in some tournaments. I don't think that ever actually happened to me. I think every time I came third, we made it out of pool, luckily. But it's a random chance. Like your point ratio, like who knows? I remember though we did have to play Allison and Bruno because our point ratio was 0.99999 and the team ahead of us was like 0.999999, and they were like just that much ahead of us in point ratio. It was so close and we were pissed. But so what's it like for the Olympics though? Like, are they doing the modified pool again, or do they play out every game?
So in my opinion, the Olympics has not grown with the sport. And the reason I say that is because the modified pool play works fantastic with a draw of 32. It does not work for a 24.
Right.
So the 24, I believe top 2 get out, and that would give you 12. But then they round it off to 16. So now you're into lucky losers who then play off for the chance to enter like the round of 16. So it's just tough.
So
like
it's back to the system that I played in. They got 6 third place teams. 2 of them make it on. 2 of them, like the other 4, got to play off to make it into the next round, right?
Yeah. So yeah, you're a points ratio away because you play your full pool. So did I win in 2 or did I lose in 3? Like, what are my sets? Like, it becomes too much math for the tiebreaker for my liking versus like you win, you're in. Like, let's just do it that way.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, that's going to maybe be a little bit wild. Hopefully we don't see any wacky ties, or maybe hopefully we do. And what's it like indoors, Josh? You're the information guy, and I feel like every time I come on this show, I feel like I sound like such a complete idiot because I have no idea what's going on. But maybe our viewers are like, some of our viewers are going, yeah, I don't know what's going on either. Like, this is where I get my information.
Oh, I hope not. But maybe actually I should trust the listeners, and maybe they do, because sometimes I don't know, do we start rumors or do we make stuff up? Sometimes it's news, sometimes it's not. But
now let's start some rumors. Who cares? What's a rumor we're going to start? I don't have a good one because that's not good.
I don't know. Sometimes we just say something that's not fact. But I believe indoor volleyball is 2 pools of 5, and you got to get out. Or is it more than that now? Let me look this up, Garrett. I feel like I'm making it up.
You know what? But this is the thing. Even watching on the Olympics, like think about previous Olympics when you watch the indoor team, you see them playing a game, and there's no commentary around the status, right? Of like, hey, here's where they're at. You show the pool play, but you're like, what does this even mean? They're 4th. Are they out? They're 2nd? Does that mean they're good? Are they in? Like, how many games have they played? Like, that's always super confusing, especially in pools of 5. You play 4 games, easily can be ties in that. Like, that's a wild system too.
So what I don't like about the system, and I can't confirm or deny, but I'm a sucker for a good story. So I misspoke, Garrett. It's 2 pools of 6, which is totally fine. But in Rio, the France men actually accused Brazil of throwing some sets that then changed the way the draw and the playoff draw was going to look on the men's side. And obviously it gets magnified because Brazil won the whole thing in Brazil, and it's just this big zoo. But there was a favor somebody needed, and they needed this result. And France actually like publicly accused Brazil of like basically setting up this coup that happened, right? Because in a pool of 6, when you have to play everybody, if you mathematically know you're through, maybe you don't play your guys, and another team needs a favor because they think like, oh, Brazil should just run the table, so they should win the pool, but then you give this lower team a win and it passes me. So there's a lot that can happen, and I think the challenge for a lot of teams is you don't technically control your fate. So then you get upset when somebody plays their 2s because they're through. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like going back to TJ when we had him on the show. His goal is to be 100% healthy and ready to go in the quarterfinals, right? That's everybody's goal. Let's be ready to go at playoff time. So do you care if you're all the way through and you're playing your second to last pool play match against like the worst team to give them a win? But like, you're not technically giving them a win, but you're playing your 2s, right?
Well, I feel like you got to, and like that's the problem with pools of 6. Like, what the heck are we doing? Pools of 6? You can easily structure that because there's so many games that you can end up getting situations where if I throw these 2 sets, I'll lose the tiebreaker with this team and get a favorable matchup if I lose, or maybe whatever, like how the ties work out, because you can see what's going on the other side, and some teams get an advantage if they play after. They can make that decision. Like, that's kind of a wild situation. Even you can do that in pools of 4, but even there, you're really only doing favors for other teams. You don't help yourself, right? In a pool of 4,
Yeah.
if you've won, there's nothing you can do to like lower yourself that would be beneficial. But in a pool of 6, being like 2 or 3 doesn't make a huge difference. If you like the third place team on the other side better, or like if you like that matchup better, you can just take it if you have the timing set up. Like that absolutely could be a fact.
For sure, and as I read the format, which I probably should have done before the show, but you know what, we're educating ourselves while educating the listeners here. They've actually added that 1 and 4 will stick on the crossover, so A1 will play B4 and so forth and so on. But for the 2s and 3s, they're going to do a draw.
What?
And on the beach, we've seen this
all right.
So they're treating a 2 and a 3 like the same, but it adds in that extra fact that like kind of like, if we win, we're going to play USA. If we lose, we're going to play Slovenia. I want to play Slovenia, so let's lose this game, right? Like, I'm not saying that actually is what happens, but it happens.
Yeah.
Where on the beach,
but the draw,
we've changed that to a draw. Because on the beach, right, like, if you play, like, on your provincial tour, we were beach crew guys. You can see on the schedule that, like, A2 is going to play C3 or whatever. Like, it's locked in. But as you get older and you get more experience, you can memorize that draw, or you can start to manipulate it. So on the beach, they're weighing certain rankings and results and doing a draw where it changes it so people can't manipulate the draw. But to see it done at the Olympics obviously shows that people have manipulated this for the betterment and obviously sacrifice of some other teams. So they added the draw for A2 and A3 will be weighed the same as will B2 and B3. So there's no way to know who you're playing.
See, again, I just get frustrated. Like, that's also dumb too, because it lessens the product. Like, if you get in pool play a match that of the 2-3 team, it doesn't matter. They don't care. They're gonna get a draw anyway. Like, what do you make 2 and 3 worth the same? Then why even play? Like, what the heck?
Totally.
like what are we doing here, volleyball?
You can finish second in your pool, and let's say like you run the table and you only lose to the team who finished first, so you're looking good, like you're a medal threat, and then you cross over with the 2 from the other pool, all because we had to do a draw so somebody doesn't cheat, and your tournament's over.
Like, that maybe should have been the semi, but now it's your quarter.
Yeah,
like medals are decided on that stuff. Like, volleyball, what are we doing here? Like, we're blowing it. Now, some other sports, I mean, could you imagine just a single elim massive 1-64 draw, or like a 1 to just play it out? That would be hectic.
Like a March Madness, just like the draw's the draw, and if there's an upset, we just play it through. We're not going to re-rank this. We're not going to do draws. You get what you get.
Yeah, that would be wild. I don't know if it's maybe what you want at the pinnacle of pinnacle events. The best of the best are going to the Olympics, is what it's supposed to be anyways. But 2 and 3 don't matter. So, I mean, hey, I've been very critical this episode, and I don't know. It might continue. I will say, though, we did some predictions for the VNL in a few episodes ago. I came pretty close to not much.
Think you and your dad, you went out on a limb. I think you did well because he picked the USA women, and wow, what a team! Like, even their 2s are like world class. Like, they rolled everybody. Like, good job. But he went out on a limb and picked the Dutch guys, and I don't think they really show up. We had to confirm
did they
that
actually show up though? Because we weren't sure if they were even going to be in the tournament. They did show up, but they didn't show up.
They did compete. One of their players went absolutely off, and I think he got like 40 points in one match. Like, absolutely. Like, everybody in the gym knew he was getting the ball and he was performing, but it wasn't enough. And then you were a bit of a homer, and you picked the Canadian men, and we just we competed well, but didn't make Final Four there.
Yeah, I really the whole thing, I just don't get the whole thing. Indoor is confusing to me. I played volleyball, like, but the dissonance between what we did as club players and then when you watch the international, it looks so different. Like, it's just such a different world. Like, these massive pools. Like I can't even build rivalries because, like, some of these games you only play in pool. It doesn't matter. Like, things get intense later in the tournament, but like, it's just wild to me. Like, you play everybody. Everybody's trying to play all their guys, trying to figure things out. It's like kind of a big mess. So for a spectator, you just like but it's not even this big single game spectacle like the NFL is, because like you're maybe playing some ones, some twos, like you have no idea what's going on. Am I alone in that? Like, am I the only one who looks at that and goes, "What the hell's going on?"
It was honestly hard to follow because because you're playing everybody. To me, there was a point in time where there just wasn't meaningful matches being played, right? Like if you're getting late in the stage and you're scheduled against like Thailand on the women's side, who just wasn't doing
like, you're done.
Yeah. It's almost like Major League Baseball because the season's so long and they play so many games. You can kind of tell in July that like some games start being a throwaway. So to see it in a volleyball tournament, the games are a throwaway because you're in this ginormous pool of like 16 teams. It hurt the viewership where it's kind of like no interest in half these games. 3/4 of these games, no interest. Like,
yeah, like what are we doing here? Like in beach too, like beach and indoor. What is there for people to get behind? Like, sure, they're country, but how many times do we see like in the Olympics, last Olympics, our 2 medal threats, the women, they're there like they play each other. Like, we got to watch our country play each other. Like, oh my gosh. Like, I mean, I guess what are you going to do? But like, and in the indoor, like oh gosh, it's frustrating as somebody who knows volleyball. I have no idea what's going on. Even you've told me, and I still have no idea what's going on.
I officially found it for beach, and I apologize. I should know this as somebody who works in this industry, but first and second place teams in each pool advance directly to the round of 16. So everybody's going to play a pre-quarter. They directly advance, as do the 2 best third place finishers. So if you're the 2 best third place finishers, you get that. And the remaining 4 third place finishers play the lucky loser matches to then enter the top 16. So not saying that medals are decided in the 16, but the pre-quarter draw, like we're competitive enough in the world that these matches matter, that I think it's funny that the Olympics have a lucky loser round and your bye is determined on your set ratio, your points ratio. Like, it just seems nonsense to me.
What are we doing here? In the Olympic Games, we have a point ratio being deciding who you play where. Do you play an extra game or not on point ratio? Are you kidding me? It's the Olympics. You think in the traditional Olympics, like day one, what's the Olympic event? You know, you got the marathon is the big one. You got wrestling is a big one. You think they're going, point ratio, step ratio for a tie. Like, no. Who finished? Go head to head. Let's get this done. Oh, sorry. Whoa. Sorry, that gets me hyped, Josh. Damn. Good thing I'm not on the mic in the commentary, because I'd be maybe slipping out a few things I shouldn't.
Hopefully we get some comments. Hopefully get some corrections, because I feel like I made some of this stuff up. But I think the other conversation that always pops up around the Olympics is the country quota rule. And I always feel for a lot of these teams where it almost feels like every cycle there's an American and there's a Brazilian team who are like top 10, top 12 in the world, but they don't get to go to the Olympics because there's 2 teams from the same country ahead of them. Meanwhile, is the Olympics about the best players, or is it about like participation from as many countries as possible? Because there's so many good teams that aren't going to be at the Olympics, but then you let in like the 30th place continental winner from this region and they get to go because we want representation, versus do we want the best teams or not?
Yeah, like that is also wild to me, and I feel for those teams. Like, you think about indoor too. Like, there's a lot of really good indoor teams who didn't qualify because they're in a tough continent, and then you got other countries who get in pretty much every year. Like, no, not even a question, right? Like, I mean, U.S. is always very good, but it's not like they're ever going to be a question of whether or not they're going to be in the Olympics, right? Whereas you get some countries who are in and out year to year. Like, you think about the European Conference. Like, holy, that is a competitive conference with a lot of great teams, right? Like, so that's wild to me. And beach as well. Like, it just makes you, again, what are we doing here? You got teams who play your sport all year, who are stars. You put on banners, you put everywhere, and then you go, well, actually, you just based on this point system, a couple people who happen to be from the same country as you are a little bit better, so you don't get to go. It's like, what? Like, it's your job. Like, it's what you do. You're the best. You're one of the top best in the world. Medal threats every year. It's just such a garbage system but like, I mean, it opened the door for Canada. So.
That's true. That is true. We benefited from that, but there are countries that you got to just feel for them at a certain point, right? Where it's like Crab and Bourne are probably the best example on the guys' side, ranked like 14th in the world, going to the Olympics. Oh, excuse me, that's an old stat. Let me pull up the real ones. But like, there's always a Brazilian team who feels like they're top 10 and they're just not getting it done. Like I don't know. I'm frustrated and it doesn't even personally affect me, right? But like that's just the state of our sport, right? Like,
Well, I think you're frustrated by the whole sessions you're running down at the beach in the morning with these guys. Like, I'd be frustrated too if I had a bunch of nimrods like you got down there. Oh, sorry.
so sorry, Born and Crab are tied for 13th in the world. They're not going to go to the Olympics. Sorry, just let me finish my thought here before we get to that, because I do want to get your thoughts. And if it has to happen on air, like I'm willing to take it. But you were down at the beach the other day, and it was just funny to observe you because you come over. Like I texted you. I didn't want to interrupt your session, but just as I finished my thought, Sweat and Walsh Jennings were 7th in the world and will not compete in the Olympics because Clays and Sponsel were 6th. Alex and April were 2nd. But the Olympics are the pinnacle, Garrett. Anyway, so you're at the beach. You're working with this young up and coming athlete. So you're there, and I see you at the end of the beach, and you pop over, and all of a sudden you see your dad, who didn't call you. Like I'm sure he talked to everybody else, but you're like, oh hey, like what are you doing here? But he didn't take the time to call you, which I thought was just a funny observation.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like I guess we both just assumed the other wouldn't be there. Like like we're not in this anymore. Like what? And then we both happen to be there. I was like, oh, what the heck? But yeah, like I don't know, man. We talk about this a lot, and I haven't actually seen the environment. Like, I haven't seen what's going on, and I don't have a great sample size. So I'm just gonna throw out some nonsense that some of it may stick and some of it may be complete garbage because I haven't seen there, right? And not that I'm the be all end all of what you should be doing, but I just was kind of spying.
I got pen and paper ready here, Garrett.
Well,
I got my pen and paper ready.
Hey,
let's have
just show the boys this episode, and I'd be like, hey, here's a lecture from Garrett, and they're like, that guy's washed up, like he doesn't matter. But I was spying, like while I was running my practice, like what you guys were doing, because I saw you arrive. I mean, 8 a.m. is your start time, right? I'm there a little bit before. I'm there 7 a.m. Beat you there, no big deal.
Yeah.
But,
bring it up. Yeah.
8 a.m. is the start time, and I'm like, man, this is like the most lackadaisical net setup, pepper, like warm up, kind of start to the day that I've seen in a while. And I was like, I just thought, and maybe there was actually a lot going on, and I just couldn't see because it was from a distance. But I was like, damn, like, and maybe it was because I was just talking about this with the athlete I was working with. It's like, hey, when you show up, like you get warm, like you ready to go, like this is what you do. You come here to compete. That's what you come here to work. So there's no like lazing around. You don't chat during pepper. Like you get to the beach, you go, you do what you need to do, get the heck out of there. Like, so I just thought that was kind of interesting that I'm sure the session went great. Like I'm not trying, I didn't see the rest, but I just thought, man, this start was a bit weird. Like, do these guys not get fully warm? Like, do they not fully have pepper? Like, how early are we doing hitting warm up? Like, I don't know. That's just my thoughts there, Josh, on a brief look there.
No, it's true, Garrett, and I battle with this because you want to give athletes trust and autonomy, and you want to let them control like how they feel sometimes. But there's other times where you kind of want to just like whip them into shape and say, this is how it's going to get done. Like I lost my mind. I'll admit it. It wasn't my best moment, but an athlete 32 minutes into practice, I set up a drill and it's gameplay and it's competitive. And he goes, I haven't hit yet. And I'm like, what have you been doing for the last 32 minutes? And it's the 32 minutes of practice. It wasn't like you're expected to show up, set up the net, and then like we start like warming up. It was a 10 o'clock practice. It was 10:32 and he wasn't ready to jump and hit. Like, that's just unprofessional in my books, right? So what was funny enough is when you pop over and we're chatting, Marquise is there, John May's there. Like, I think these are values, these are principles that you talked about. Like, to go back to your Passin Dimes episode, like, you really talk about, like, what are you doing the 20 minutes before practice that you're ready? Like, Marquise, to bring up you started at 7 a.m., we started at 8 a.m. I remember when Marquise played the OVA Grand Slam, the first question he asked Maverick when he has like, hey, what time do you want to train in the morning? He asked him, what time does the national team start? And Maverick goes 8. He goes, yeah, we'll start at 7. And when I called him out on that, I was like, Mark, why'd you do that? He goes, because Josh, I wanted you to see me when you were getting to the beach and you're casually getting into it. I wanted you to see me in a full sweat and I was ready to go. I was out working you just by showing up a little bit early, getting into it. And it's just so funny that like that's gamesmanship for Mark. And I can see you've absorbed that too, where it's just like you almost want that secret workout, or you want that feeling that like Mark told me in his episode, he's leaving the beach as other guys are rolling in and arriving. And he's just like, I've already got my work done and I'm going to be back this afternoon. So I'm out working you guys. And I think there's equity in that, in the sense that when it's 18-17 in a match, Marquise can honestly say, I've earned this. I've outworked this guy. I'm worthy of this moment. Let's go. Like, let's get into it. Versus, yeah, Garrett, you're shining it on. You're making me feel a little bit vulnerable here, but that was a bad moment for us, and I'm embarrassed to say that's not the unusual thing. That I think we ease into practice, where now you fired me up that tomorrow we're gonna have a great session, just because you're saying like, let's go, let's be ready to go. Pepper's not for chatting. Pepper's for preparing for the day, so we can perform and we can earn some of this feeling in these clutch moments, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, awesome of you to say that. Not that I'm necessarily correct, but I'm glad Mark was saying stuff like that to confirm what I said. But like you said a point earlier about how you'd like to leave it up to agency, and like have each of the guys kind of take their own responsibility for the session, and that's absolutely true. Like that is true, and it's not, as a coach, it's not your responsibility necessarily to make sure they bring the culture of the practice. But if it's not happening, like where's it going to come from? Like, who's going to do it? You know what I mean? Like, and it's a good question, because is it you? Maybe not. Like, who is it? I mean, I guess my dad shows up there, but he was probably late. Tell me, was he late?
See, what I thought about your dad, it was an interesting observation, because he's working with the same athletes I do, but to give your dad credit, like there's a mood around his environment, right? So one, it's a little bit different where he's a personal coach. So now he's on his own time. He's got a family and they're personally paying him, where I'm employed by Volleyball Canada. And if you're a carded athlete, like you get access to these services, right? So now there's a little bit of equity on there. And it was so funny that the net's up, guys are warming up, like they're a little bit casual, but then your dad gets there and obviously like you can tell they fire up a little bit. But 8:00 practice, I think your dad was there by 8:02, and then it started when he arrived. But your dad's not there to watch Pepper. You can tell he doesn't want to show up and be the guy out rolling lines. He wants to be the guy that when we arrive, boys, I'm here, like, let's get it going, right? And I don't know if that's a conversation he has with the squads he's worked with, but I can tell you just from being around the beach for a few years now, your dad's not going to set up the net, but when he arrives, like, it's go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the way he is, and that's kind of the way I think when he played, his coach's expectations were indoor or beach, right? Like, and I think that's fair. Like, the coach is going to show up and run a practice. If you're ready to go when practice starts, you just get more out of the practice, right? Like there's no way around it. If you got a 2-hour practice and you're ready to go at minute 1, you're going to get 2 hours of work, right? If you're just warming up for the first 20, 30 minutes, you're only getting an hour and a half of work. Marquise doesn't even need to show up at 7 a.m. to outwork you. He just needs to be there 20 minutes early to get ready, and he gets another half an hour, 20 minutes out of the practice every single day, right? So I think, but what I will say, I don't think those guys were ready to go when he arrived, right? Like, because I was looking and it didn't look like they were sprinting, fully hitting. It looked like they were kind of, whatever. And then he shows up and it's like, oh, we better go, which, I mean, they're fine. But I just thought that was kind of interesting, because you're right. When he shows up, he's like, no, like, I'm here. It's go time.
And I will say, you got to earn this. And there's coaches in our community where I'm like, your dad, Hernan, we've pumped the tires at like Glenn Hogue, Benjo. There's certain coaches that they've earned a reputation that like, ooh, so-and-so's here. Where I thought it was funny and I kind of took it as a knock, but I let it go. That the same athlete who gave me shit that they didn't hit yet and it was 10:32 at a 10 o'clock practice, your dad's warm-up drill, they were jumping and attacking. And I'm sure he didn't raise his hand and be like, Coach, I'm not ready to go here. Like, you didn't tell me, that wasn't communicated. It was you're jumping and hitting, and I don't care if your shoulder's sore. You got to prepare. You got to be ready to go. So I think that's a little bit of command and maybe some respect equity I have to earn as a coach. But I think your dad doesn't deal with the same questions I deal with. And I think it's well earned, but I need to get to that level, I feel like.
Well, what's wild is he just wouldn't. Like, that's the thing. He just wouldn't deal with it. And he is who he is, and we all are who we are, and we have our strengths, right? But he just wouldn't deal with that. Like, that would just be like, get out, sit off, you're done, go run, suicides, make the drill harder on you, give you less reps. Like it just wouldn't. It's like, no, that's not how you work with me. Like we don't do that type thing, right? So like it was like that as a kid too. Like, you know, as a child, like in the home, like, you know, screwing up, like making a mistake, misbehaving, whatever. It's like, no, that's not how like this goes. Like we don't do that. Like it's unacceptable. Like, you know, it's punishment. It's not punishment. It's you're left out. Whatever it is, it's like, no, like it just can't let that go type thing. So not saying you did, but he's just like that with everything. Even this show, man. Like he calls me, goes, "Hey, how's the show going?" Like, when do you have me back on? It's like, what? Like, what is this, the John May show now? It's like, oh God, we gotta stop talking about him.
Well, I will say the show is gaining momentum. I know we had to take a little break there. Obviously, you deserve some time off. You and Maria got to go like chill and relax a little bit, and it is nice confirmation, Garrett, where people are now approaching us. Because I feel like when we started, like we're working the phones, we're calling contacts, we're calling friends, being like, "We got this show. I promise it's gonna be a lot of fun. You got to join us." Where now it's kind of like, hey, like, you ever need a guest? Like, don't be afraid to ask me. Like, I'd love to do that. And, like, we're talking like Olympians, Garrett, have asked us to be on the show.
I mean, that's a great point, Josh, but it's a little bit undercut by the fact we have no guests this episode. We got nobody here this episode, but, man, people are just flocking to come to the
People are
show.
lining up. Like, this was just for you and I to, like, work and for me to, like, not miss you as much, right? But I think moving forward, we're going to have some big, heavy shooters. And if you're listening, I mean, comment below, comment on the Passin Dimes Instagram that, like, if there's a guest you want, like, let's get this going because we had a good thing going, Garrett. And I think it's nice to include as many people as we can. And let's be honest, we can't run a weekly show with just you and I going back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, we could, but I think it would be awfully boring. I think the chemistry would just start to wane. I mean, I can only chirp you about your practices before you eventually snap, or you're just too good that I can't chirp you. So, I mean, yeah, it's fun, and hopefully you guys are enjoying it too. If you're still listening, you're the real hero. Be a friend, tell a friend. You know, we need the help because we're struggling with the show. Like it's tough to get eyeballs, you know. So if you're out there and you enjoy the show, hit us up wherever. Instagram. What's our handle there, Josh?
We're just Passin Dimes. No G in Passin. We're cool. When Dallas created it, there was no G. It's Passin.
No G, although there is one in my name. But it would be so disappointing if somebody's looking for our show and they type in Passin Dimes and they just can't find it. That would be unfortunate. But also maybe somebody's looking for Passin Dimes and they misspell it and then they find our show. So maybe it evens out.
Maybe all our fans are bad spellers and that's how they keep finding us. And you know what? Now that I think about it, when I think I do the hashtag of Passin Dimes, I include the G but in our name. So that's just like No, I correct myself. It is Passin. Okay. So we're not flip-flopping on the brand, Garrett. It's all about the brand. We're very consistent. So yeah, I had to double check mine because I just had a moment there. I was kind of like, wait a second. Because it can't be the G sometimes and sometimes not the G.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, we've diverged, I think, successfully, Josh. This is normally the time where I tell the guest that this is how the show ends. But I think we both already know this is how the show ends. I think I'll end it off this week, Josh. I'll do it with just a thank you to our listeners and viewers. If you're still watching, appreciate it. Subscribe, comment, everything. Reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Sharp Cuts.